In our today's class, we are going with the continuation of our discussion about economic institutions. So first, let's have a recap of the institutions which we discussed in our yesterday's class. I made you write in the chat box. Most of you have written here. I've got the answer. I've read also. So you know that we had discussed about some of the major economic institutions which are helping to build relationships, the trade relationships, which are contributing towards the development of each other. That's actually the concept behind the role of these economic institutions in the international arena. Okay. When we are looking into the major functions which been rendered by these economic institutions, you might find that it can be broadly brought under three headings. One is economic cooperation, two is integration of the economies, three is development of the participating nations by contributing to each other. And the nutshell of that can be better trade relationship, better job opportunities, better know-how or with respect to technological advancements. So all these are the nutshells of the economic integrations that is happening through these economic institutions. So that's how we are just summarizing that into few points. If you look at, maybe the area of focus can be different from one institution to another, but ultimately all these would be the economic goals that are being aimed by these economic institutions in the international markets. Okay. With this note, we are continuing with our discussion on economic institutions. The first one which we would be discussing in our today's class would be New Development Bank. Okay. And now all of us are aware about BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South African integration, right? This is actually the brainchild of this BRICS conference. Okay, the brainchild of BRICS summit, especially, it had been in the pipeline, but the summit in 2012, which was conducted in Indian headquarters, that is New Delhi, led to the development of this New Development Bank. And the discussion came up for some years. It was in the pipeline, and finally NDB became fully operational in especially in BRICS nation. It's not limited to BRICS countries, but it became fully operational from 2016. Specifically, they have some kind of concentration towards BRICS countries, even though they help in the development of economies, especially emerging economies. These were the founding members for New Development Bank. And as you can see, the primary objectives are concentrating upon the sustainable development of emerging economies. Now, you might be wanting to ask me, what is this sustainable development? Basically, this sustainable development talks about doing low hindrance to the other economies, less hindrance or less negative impact on the environment, going with economically viable solutions when we are talking about different developments in the area of infrastructure, science, and technology. So all these constitute the so-called concept of sustainable development, which is leading to the overall development of these economies. So basically, they intend to foster the development, help these emerging economies to convert themselves into a developed category through sharing the know-how, through helping each other for promoting sustainable development. And that's why I put the innovation, cutting edge technology solutions are actually the nutshell of these collaboration, which is shared between maybe patent would be there, but there is knowledge sharing, there is cooperation between these nations to help each other to convert themselves into a developed nation. That was a basic idea at the time of setting up of New Development Bank, even though later the primary objectives maybe because of some kind of strained relationships or some kind of trade uh, gap which was established between the nations, the primary objectives may have deviated to some extent. That we can know when we look from the perspective of India itself, when we take some of the trade policies which were trying to ban the exports from some of these countries. So that's why we say that primarily the anticipation at the time of setting up of New Development Bank was contributing to the development of these economies, especially through this collaboration of BRICS nations, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. That's the theme about New Development Bank. And see here, you can see this is some of the latest the recent projects that's been funded by New Development Banks in the BRIC countries. You can see that the project which got approved recently about 14 million, which is about mobility and urban development in Brazil, and in China, the project which got approved, you have to submit from a country perspective with the approval of Ministry of your Foreign Affairs. You have to submit this proposal, and the proposal will be vetted during the meeting of BRICS leaders, and finally, BRICS leaders towards this new development bank, and then that needs to be approved. The China Green Road demonstration project, which talks about developing environmental friendly infrastructure. In fact, all the details about these projects are very well briefed in the website of New Development Bank. And then we can see the money which has been allotted for South Africa for again to the road development, infrastructure development under the category of infrastructure. And then South Africa is another project which was for emergency assistance for COVID-19. And Russia also had similar kind of assistance which they got sanctioned with respect to emergency loan for the because of the negative impact created by COVID-19 pandemic. So these are some of the projects that got approved recently, which is being published in their website. And they've already said that some of the projects are under the review process. Maybe in due course that will be approved if all the conditions which is being laid down in the agreement is satisfied, right? So this is an introduction to New Development Bank. But what we have to remember is this is primarily towards the development, sustainable. That's what I said, sustainable development. The projects get approved only when it satisfies the condition that is laid down under sustainability concept. You can see that. You can just look up how that has gone with the green, the environment, the beating the health issues. So all these are related with sustainable development. So this is all about New Development Bank. The next one, WTO, we know it very well. We had been learning a lot about WTO whenever we discussed about trading activities that is happening between the nations. So as we all know, WTO is an international organization. It's a sole international organization, which is, even though the other economic institutions support the activities of WTO, primarily the trade between the countries are regulated through the measures adopted by WTO. Right, so that is the importance of WTO as an organization facilitating the trade relationship between the countries. And the primary goal is to ensure free flow of trade and with less barriers or no barriers, and the trade relationships are contributing to the development of the countries, and they also go with settlement of trade disputes or the development, like the development of the member countries with respect to their imports and exports. All these aspects are coming under the preview of WTO. And then when we look into, we are just going to discuss about the ministerial conferences. WTO, mainly the decisions happen in two venues. That is, all major decisions would be made by the ministers who meet at least in 2 years. I'm just going to show you the minutes. This is actually major decisions that is connected with the member countries. And of course, they go with regular meetings to take into consideration the other happenings in between these 2 years. The major decision can be like alteration in the agreement, establishment of a treaty between a country, inclusion or deletion of a member country. All these would be taken care only in this the meeting, ministerial conference that will be conducted in every 2 years, right? And as I said, the primary benefit of WTA always is to ensure that nations establish good trade relationship between each other in such a way that it is almost like free trade between the countries. Less barriers means taxes, other burdens which is being imposed on the trade is tried to be brought down, so that it will be when you look from the customer's perspective, it will be contributing towards the provision of better goods and services at right prices. And then this is the head office of WTO, which is in Geneva, and Geneva is in Switzerland. And presently, 164 members are the members of WTO, which covers 98% of the trade activities that has been conducted across the globe. And yes, there are a few more countries which are in the pipeline who had filed their application to be member of WTO, and it's under review because of many reasons, because some of these nations do not qualify with the basic requirements. So that's under the pipeline, and they are under review process. And as I said, it was established way back in 1995. And the Uruguay round we are yet to discuss. It was a child, or as we say, a brainchild of one brainchild of Uruguay round, which had gone from 1986 to 94. That is the 8th round of Uruguay meeting. This is also, along with a few other which we are yet to discuss. This is also one brainchild of the Uruguay round. Okay, Uruguay round is a meeting which is between the leaders who are trying to enter into different kind of trade relationship, which is part of World Trade Organization. So in a nutshell, we are talking about WTO, World Trade Organization. And World Trade Organization, the importance lies in the fact that it is the sole, or maybe it is the supreme authority which is regulating the trade relationship between the countries and member countries, of course, member countries. But what we can understand, as I had shown the figure, majority of the nations are members of WTO. Then what we have to remember here is the WTO members, they have the major decisions are taken up in the ministerial conferences, which are in front of you, which I have presented in the slide. The ministerial conferences happen in every 2 years, and where all the world leaders meet together. They take up the important issues for discussion and they settle it. And the primary aim of WTO, World Trade Organization, as an institution is to reduce the trade barriers and to encourage trade between the nations, right? And now we will be discussing about ministerial conferences of WTO, the topmost decision-making body. And as I said, the members, the leaders will be meeting in 2 years. They would be representative of each nation, right? And the ministerial conferences takes up the decision. All major decisions can be taken up only in the ministerial conferences by signing the agreement between the nations under the guidelines, under the leadership of WTO. And these are the list. Actually, after 17, the next had to happen in 2020, but that did not happen. That got postponed. That had to happen in Ghaziabad, but that got postponed because of the pandemic, and it was held in 2021 in Geneva. And these are the hyperlinks I would be sharing with you. You can just click on this and see what were the major decisions taken in these ministerial conferences. It would be interesting to know. India also participated in that, and it would be interesting to know what were the major decisions taken from India's perspective or from other nations in these different meetings. And the first meeting is, since it was set up in 1995, the first meeting was 1996, and from then every 2 years the ministerial conferences were conducted, except there were 1 or 2 years there was a slip, and the reason behind that was mainly the calamity or economic crisis across the world economy. Now, the reason one I already said, it was due to the pandemic, right? And the major decision, there is the trade relationship or the agreement between the nations. Been part of these discussions, and the finalization, the settlement of disputes, all these can be taken up to the ministerial conference agenda. So it will be interesting. Just click on this after the class just to understand what are the major decisions that is being taken in these conferences. Now, the next part, again, it is important part that is related with WTO, which is multilateral trade agreements, which is really happening. This is a nutshell of the type of trade agreements that was happening in all the ministerial conferences. It's a nutshell, okay? Multilateral trade agreements is supposed to happen in the ministerial conferences held by WTO from time to time. Okay, so this is like a sequence. I've presented it. Now you can see that when you browse through the trade agreements, you can find that majority of those trade agreements has happened in the field of agriculture or other industries like textile, clothing, banking, telecommunications. Those are related with tariffs, or external barriers or internal barriers, industrial standards, which is related to the food safety or food or the sanitation regulations, intellectual property rights, that will be related to the copyright, the patents, or the cyber security issues. All these actually were part of the multilateral trade agreements that has happened in these conferences, in these ministerial conferences. So reading through that, you can summarize or categorize broadly into these headings. What were the major decisions taken in these conferences? So multilateral trade agreements is nothing but it's a trade agreement that happens between the nations regarding their trade agreement. That's why we say that multilateral. Between the nations means between the participating countries. And the basic principle that will be kept by WTO while sanctioning all these agreements remains to be four. These are the basic principles that will be guiding every agreement that is sanctioned under the preview of international trade by WTO. One is trade without discrimination. Now, what do we mean by this trade without discrimination is suppose you have a trade relationship with 5 nations. Say India. India is having a trade relationship with China, Japan, Germany, or USA, Australia. Sometimes there can be, as in every human relationship, there may be some kind of favoritism. So this is the context of this trade without discrimination in terms of international trade. That is, there should not be favoritism, most favored nation conditions, like that when you are having a trade relationship for the when you are having a trade agreement. um, in the same context, maybe you have a trade agreement to for the supply of agriculture products. So in that case, as a nation, you have to ensure that you provide the same kind of duties and taxes when you go for these five nations in your agreement. You cannot give some concessional tax to one nation and higher tax to another because their economy is performing well. That is not possible. So you cannot have that most favored agreement or most favored concessions. You have to go with trade without discrimination, or without establishing discrimination between the trading partners. So that is what we call as trade without discrimination. Then national treatment is there can be exemptions, which we will discuss at a later stage. But broadly, what we say is, once a product is into the foreign market, maybe you are importing a product, you have sanctioned to import that product, and once the product is there in your market, the government should not discriminate these products with the local product, because then in that case that will be very difficult for them to sell, maybe extra charges being imposed on them, so that those products, the imported products, become very costly and it is not appealing to the local customers. Likewise, so that is the theme behind national treatment. But there are exemptions which we will be discussing when we are discussing about the anti-dumping policies, right? But national treatment talks about treating the foreign goods and local goods, at par. There is no special treatment. Maybe your intention is to protect the local industries, or it can happen in the reverse order. You have some no special interest towards the product from a particular country, so you charge less taxes for them, and the same product coming up from other country can be charged with higher taxes. Accordingly, the product will be available at a higher price. So there is a discrimination happening within the local market. That cannot happen. That's what we mean by this national treatment. And the next is freer. As far as free trade is a concept that is there. We had discussed this when we were discussing about common market. But what WTO is trying to establish is a common market for the entire nation. That's a broader theme of WTO. Even though we have not reached to that level, there is differences in the external tariff, taxes, duties, internal tariffs, duties, and all. So there is no free movement of goods between the nations. But still, what gradually what they expect through negotiation is the concept of freer trade movements between the nations. Now, you might ask me, what is the benefit of that? It is actually the benefit will happen by way of price reduction, by way of bringing more competency with respect to the quality, or by bringing more products into your markets, uh, greater choices to the consumers. All these can be the result of these freer trade, but presently that's not in practice in every market. At least in common markets, we can find the concept of free trade transactions, free movement of goods, people, capital, resources, all these between the nations. So that again is another principle of WTO. And the next is predictability. Predictability. See, when we were discussing about the financial market changes and all, more investors will be coming into the market when you know what is going to happen, or when you can anticipate what are the type of movement that can happen in the financial market during a particular period. Otherwise, people will be risk averse. They will stay back and watch what is going to happen. So that level of transparency is expected in case of international trade also. And how do a WTO ensures that that level of transparency is brought in? They have the general conditions regarding the movement of taxes, the tariffs, the type of goods, the agreement period, the list of services and the list of industries that needs to be concentrated on. All these areas, WTA have, TO will go with issuing the directions, guidelines, which is primarily aiming at ensuring transparency in the international trade. Say, if you look into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of India, you can read about the multilateral trade agreements that India has made. You can look into what were the major the decisions that's been placed at the time of ministerial conference of recent ministerial conference of WTO. What were the cases, what were the conditions that is under. So that is a kind of transparency being ensured from a national angle, right? So likewise in WTO site also, everyone is free to visit. There is right to information, and all the treaty, all the agreements that's been made is published. It's one way ensuring transparency, and it is open to every a citizen of a country. So that way, whatever decisions taken up at the meeting at the top end is being communicated even to the lower level. So that is just one example, but what they intend is, and there should be transparency. Every nation, see, some of the nations, we can see, if you really observe the type of news coming out, the type of the news being shared through the different channels or media, we can find that some of the countries still remain like a black box. They don't open up towards the world economy. They hide all the major happenings in their country, and they have a policy where that's not been discussed in the through media also. So that creates a situation where there is lack of transparency regarding what is happening in that country. Some of the nations, we can find that if you closely observe the type of news, the media communications that's been made over the years. So WTO is working towards it. They say that if you really have to establish good type of trade relationships, at least you have to be transparent regarding those matters that will have direct impact on your trade relationship. That's what we call about the predictability factor. So you can expect, okay, your economy, what is the current position, the financial position of your economy, what is the demographic profile of your economy. All these can help to establish a good type of trade relationship between the nations. So these are the four principles that will be guiding all the multilateral trade agreements that is happening between the member countries under the guideship of WTO, World Trade Organization, right? Now we going with GATT. When WTA came up in 1995, the relevance of GATT got lost. And in fact, it is said that WTA came up by replacing the limitations of GATT. Okay. So initially, GATT came up in 1948, which is General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, and this the essence is same. The essence, if you look with, if we make a comparison between GATT and WTO, it remains same. But only thing what we can understand here is when we went into WTO, there were extension. The boundaries were extended to cover more contextual aspects into that to build better trade relationship. So that is what happened when GATT got replaced by WTO. And GATT also had the same intention of promoting international trade by eliminating the trade barriers, which includes tariffs and quotas. And as I said, no, in WTO also the same essence is transferred, but it has better coverage with respect to the elimination of trade barriers. That's actually something which we have to understand. That's the primary reason. Again, this is another brainchild of Uruguay round. Okay, GATT being replaced by WTO. Yeah, we are going to discuss about the STAR we have been discussing till now, Uruguay round. When you look in from the perspective of Uruguay rounds, broadly there were 15 rounds till now, but the most popular in that was the eighth round, which got extended from 1986 to 1994. Okay, that's why normally when we refer to Uruguay round, we refer to the one which was held in Uruguay in 1986. That was the eighth round. Okay, even though there were 15 rounds as a whole, the eighth round got very popular because of the major agreements it had during that time. Okay, and it started in Uruguay, it concluded in 1994 in Morocco. Okay, so 7.5 years the discussions were carried out with respect to the trade agreement. And in fact, in this round, the framework for the entire GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade was formed, and WTO actually came into existence by 1995. And 123 countries took part in this. In all these 7.5 years, they laid down their policies aligning with the national policy of foreign trade, right? And still now it's under revision, it's continuous, but the major agreements between the 123 nations were formed during this round. That's why it took a long time. Almost 7.5 years, finally came up with the International Trade Agreement Treaty, right? So that's the relevance of Uruguay round. TRIPS, again, another byproduct of Uruguay round, byproduct of WTO, which goes with, this is under the purview of WTO. It's actually the responsibility of WTO. TRIPS talks about intellectual property right, trade-related intellectual property right. That is buying, selling, sharing, ownership, partnership, all these connected with intellectual property rights. Maybe it can be with the softwares, it can be with the as we see, patents, medicine, in the field of medicine and all, and it can be with the development of different technology. So all these is brought under when there is an establishment of or transfer of intellectual property rights between the nations. It is said to happen under TRIPS by, it is regulated by World Trade Organization. It is trade in, it can be trade in knowledge, creativity, technology, and all these. And of course, WTO, again, under the preview of TRIPS, is entrusted with solving the disputes with respect to these intellectual property rights. Of course, that is taken up to the ministerial conferences also. If there is a dispute that remains unsettled till that time, that will be brought under discussion, which can be between many nations. So it is brought under discussion, and the major decision is taken at that time. So TRIPS is trade-related aspects of intellectual property right. You have another one that's coming up, which is TRIMS, trade-related investment measures. Broadly, this is fair treatment, investment measures. We were discussing about the 4 principles of WTO, where it talked about fair treatment, equal treatment to all the partners. So that is the concept here also, fair treatment to all the investors. Suppose if two or three countries are coming for investment in a particular country, the treatment given to with respect to trade, okay, specifically when it comes to WTO, it is with respect to trade. When they are coming up for investment in a particular country, what TRIMS ensure is equal treatment to both these players. Or maybe one country, because they have a good relationship with us, they should not be given a better treatment. So that's what fair treatment of investment. In practice, I don't know how far this is implemented, because we can take the example from India itself. Even though we are trying to nullify the differences, the barriers, but some of it may not be implemented to what level it is expected at the international treaty. So the scope of this measure includes local content and trade balancing measures. Now, say for example, local content. The concept of local content is, see, when you are going with some of the conditions, it will go vary with the industry to industry. In automobile sector, there is one condition that if you're going with a production in a particular country, presently 50 percentage of the raw materials you need to procure it from the local market. That's one condition. So that's a local content, like how far you are supporting the local industries, because otherwise it will be a threat. In some of the treaties, there is a condition that if you go with a production in a particular country, you will have to procure certain percentage of raw material plus certain number of employees of your employees to be taken up from the local market, domestic market. So that is what we call as, and in fact, the result of that will be trade balancing measures, because you should not be in a competitive advantage. Maybe you are from a developed nation, right? You have high-end technology at your hand, in your place. You're bringing that and going with the production process, using the resources, using the environment, using the trade no potential of a particular country. So definitely that should not be a threat to the local market, to the domestic market. So that is why this TRIM ensures a fair treatment to the domestic market as well as the foreign market. So that is where they say that if you go with this technology and production, you have to use local content. You have to give or offer or job opportunities to the local people. All these conditions, it varies from industry to industry. It varies from the amount of investment, all that. There are different conditions, but broadly, that's what we talk about, the fair treatment. In return also, sometimes there can be a company coming up to the national boundary with lot of investment, with lump sum investment. There can be another country which is coming up, but without not that much investment, without no establishing their stand in the national market, maybe not to that extent. Right, the ratio of investment can vary between these countries. So in that case, the trims ensure that you give fairer treatment to both these parties. Maybe you can you are benefited to a higher rate by the country which has made higher investment. That's true, but the fairer treatment had to be ensured to both these nations which had come for their investments in your national boundary. So all these are the broad category of trims. One more is there, which is preventing the anti-dumping concept, which we will discuss finally when we conclude. Okay, so that is about trims, which is a trade-related investment measures. Trims. So we discussed about trade relation related investment measures in the context of primarily in investment in tangible. Okay, with respect to services, there are certain exemptions which were included at a later stage, but initially TRIMS primarily was related to tangible investments, not to service industry. That's something which we have to understand, like service industry, like tourism or maybe banking. They had a separate kind of agreement initially, but now some of the agreements under TRIMS has uh, may not be direct control, but has an indirect control on the service industry also. Okay. Then AOA is with respect to the agriculture sector, agreement on agriculture. Again, this also is subset of WTO agreement in 1995. And the body in charge of this is trade related aspects with respect to agriculture sector. So definitely it is WTO. And here it is because we know that food safety and security is very important for every nation. Right. So that's why this AOA is very much related to the agriculture trade relationship, and it aims at making it more competitive and ensure the fairness in the treatment between the nations. So that is a basic area, and I have put the key area, that is market access, domestic support, export competition. So these are the three focus areas of AOA. Market access is nothing but uh, how far the market of a particular nation is accessible to other nations. How far it is accessible means what is the tariffs, what is the quotas, what are the other non-tariff barriers which is being set up for. And WTO ensures that such barriers it's not there is no discrimination with respect to such barriers, right? That's been ensured with valid reasons. And domestic support, of course, uh, suppose if a foreign no if a well-developed nation coming up with advanced production, they may be able to produce that in economies of scale. Accordingly, the price can be very less for a particular category of product, maybe tea, right? So in that case, if they float the tea at a lesser price in the domestic market, the problem here is that will adversely affect the domestic industries. We look from the Indian perspective, we have our own tea productions, right? If another country which is very much advanced with the tea production in terms of scale and the level of operation, they might be able to offer that at a lesser price. So that means if that happens here in the domestic market, that will be something that is hindering the natural growth of domestic industries. In that case, domestic support would be offered, identifying the threat, which will be in the form of subsidies or other kind of trade benefits or support programs for the local industries. Such programs can be initiated by WTA under the AOA agreement. Okay, that is one example for that domestic support. Export competition, again, export competition, suppose your production price of a product is decided based on the production cost, right? Maybe in some countries the production cost is very high. The reasons could be many. Capital can be scarce, or it can be the labor is very expensive. In such a case, WTO has the right to interfere in that and ensure that these countries are able to address the export competition that is available in the or that is prevailing in the international market. And these can be by by giving subsidies or some kind of support programs through governments, through respective governments. So export competition, so ultimately what are they aiming at? Aiming at making countries competitive in the international trade market. And why AOA? AOA is specifically looking into agriculture sector. Agriculture, produce, food security, food safety, all these aspects come under the review of AOA. Okay, agreement on agriculture. Again, which is the body which which will be looking into the aspects, the agreements formulated by AOA. It is WTO. They are one wing which is part of WTO, specifically looking into the food requirements of people across when they go with entering into different kind of trade relationship. So that is AOA. And AMS. Here, what we have to remember is AMS is part of WTO. AMS is part of WTO, and it includes all the measures. I had been mentioning about different types of supports, different types of principles. This is actually an aggregate measurement of support from WTO. Okay, and aggregate measurement of support from WTO to nations depends on its competitiveness in the market. Suppose some of the countries, they may be good with respect to food production, but they do not have the right strategy for establishing trade relationship, but they are not competitive with respect to establishing good trade relationships, or maybe they do not have good warehousing facilities. They have produce, but they are not into uh, no into with greater developments in the area of warehousing or transporting this. All these maybe because of their location, they have an inborn difficulty in establishing trade relationship. They do not have much access to different nations across the globe. So all these are some of the problems that might be faced by nations when they are engaged in trade. In such case, WTO, focusing on the specific needs of each of these nations, they will be coming up with different plans and policies, subsidies, monetary benefits, advisory services, agreement, formulation of agreements, which will be helping these nations to come out from the difficulty, from their difficulty. So this is actually a customized kind of support which is being provided by WTO under the head aggregate measurement of support. So it's not mandatory that every nation had to receive that. It will be something that is taken up by WTO based on the feasibility, viability, and genuinity of the projects submitted by the nations. And these support can be like product-based support or non-product specific support. Say suppose product-based means example is you might be looking into certain category of products. Say for example, if you look in the trade relationship between two countries with respect to spice. So there can be many nations which are establishing trade relationship between the nations with respect to spices, right? India is one in that. And each of these nations will be having their own advantages and disadvantages. And the advantages, of course, that's your competitiveness, and your disadvantages that will be reducing your competitive edge. So WTO will be looking into those disadvantages or those barriers and trying to resolve it for the purpose of benefit of international trade. So that is one way we call as aggregate measurement of support or AMS. And what we have to understand from this perspective is it's not it's not a uniform policy. See, there can be trade-related problems with sub-Saharan continent or maybe African countries. They are, no, people may not be educated enough. They do not know different trade channels. They need a kind of orientation to go with advanced technology in production, right? And there is a lot of vacant land which could be used for food production, and that can help these countries to go with establishing good trade relationship with other nations. All these will be taken up looking into the need of those specific union, maybe common markets, or it can be trade integration, or it can be country specific, right? So these all these would be brought under the category of aggregate measurement of support that is extended by World Trade Organization to ensure the fair trade and free trade between the nations. Okay, and the last part of WTO which we are discussing is, earlier we had said that WTO had replaced GATT, right? Now, this wing of WTO is looking up the major functions that had been rendered by GATT, that is General Agreement on Trade in Services. No, initially we said that when we were talking about TRIMS investment, which was tangible, that was a major part that is included in TRIMS. But here, GATS include the agreement in services, that is intangible part. Okay, and here again, this is a nutshell of Uruguay round, which was in 1995, and the services can range from your basic services to any type of services which you are offering to the world market. And the basic principles behind this is what we call as fair and equal. No, we had been talking about that from the beginning. The same principle lies here. Only difference what you have to find is this is with respect to trade in services. Example, banking, tourism, or as we say, the other types of services which may include consultancy services, or as we say, outsourcing services, or it, it can vary from country to country. When we look from India, we can say even trade between educational services. Like we have many international players here, we have many international institutions coming to our country that can be brought down into this category, or it can be anything that is related with financial markets, which can include the basic industries like insurance or mutual funds or health services. That is one of the popular area when we look from the Indian trade relations with much of the underdeveloped or other developing economies. Many of the countries, they do not have advanced health services, and they come to India for getting these services, because we are advanced in when, of course, it's not something when we were not the top, we will not be brought to the top institutions or top health organizations, but we are good in that, we are best in certain areas. So that's why we invite a lot of patients from across the globe, a lot of specialized treatments. We have our own Ayurvedic health centers, which is attracting a lot of foreigners. So all these are brought under the category of like provision of health services. These are brought under the category of GATS. Okay, so that's General Agreement on Trade in Services. And as I said, the basic is equitable and fair treatment to all the nations, all the participation nations, without hindering their economic activity. Because say when you look from the service industry, some of the nations solely depend on the service industry for their economic progress. Some of the countries, they are good in provision of services, may not excel in provision of manufactured products. So for those countries, service industry is extremely important, which is contributing to the growth of the GDP. So this GATS is concentrating on the trade relationship that is established in terms of services. Okay, so all these are part of WTO, TRIMS, TRIPS, AOA, AMS, GATS. All these are part of WTO, different wings that is taking care of different aspects of international trade. Okay. Now the last part, as I said, anti-dumping measures. That again is another one of the major function of this international economic institutions, specifically that is related to World Trade Organization. Now dumping is a scenario I have defined as when you are trying to place your product at a lower selling price than in your domestic in your parent country. Say for example, if country A is trying to sell the products at a price which is lesser than what is available in their particular place, that will be called as there will be conversion rate. All these would be applicable. But if that is the case, after application of conversion rate, if the product appears to be lesser or of lesser priced, lower priced, then that may be brought under the category of dumping. But it is not uniformly applicable to all the categories, but this is generally brought under the category of dumping when it is available at a lower price than that is available in the local markets. Underlying principle is they want to get rid of these products. They are manufacturing that in a larger scale, and they don't want that product to be sold in their country. They are intending that to be dumped, that to be sold in other country for making profit, right? So that will be that will do damage to the economy of any nation where this dumping happens. So the anti-dumping measures will be adopted with the support of Ministry of Foreign Affairs of that particular country. And these measures primarily looks up charging higher price. It primarily takes up the care of higher tariffs or taxes or export duties for such product, so that the product becomes costly in the domestic market, and consumers may not find that as appealing for the for purchase, because when you compare with the local market products, these products may be highly priced, but the intention of the country was making it available at a lower price so that the product can be sold in bulk in this foreign country. But that intention is nullified through charging extra taxes on that product. So that is what we call as one major measure is that. Other than that, the other measures we have already learned, like quota, establishing quota, or no ban to certain products because of these because of this dumping intentions, ban to products from a particular country. All these are being done, but primarily the initial curbing is done by charging extra taxes for such products. So the comparison is made based on at what price the product is available in the local markets of these foreign countries. And if it is higher, definitely they are going with charging higher taxes, which will make this product expensive in the local market. Maybe say, suppose if X country is trying to dump the product to India, then what we will do is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, under the guideship of under the leadership of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the agreement will be taken up to charge extra taxes for such product. And automatically the so-called product will become expensive in the local market. Definitely you are trying to curb the consumption of these products. So this is a common measure that has been adopted. Apart from that, as I said, no, you will establish quota, or you will ban the products, or maybe you will allow that only with respect to certain conditions. All these are the other types of measures being adopted to prevent the anti-dumping aspect. So these are the major directions in major discussion points with respect to economic institutions that are trying to control the trading activity as well as business relationship established in the international trade. Okay, so we discussed about the WTO and its subsidiaries. We also discussed about Asian Development Banks. That was the result of BRIC Summit, which was held in 2012, and it came up in 2016, where it's specifically looking into the development of these BRIC nations. Then we were looking into the different roles being performed by World Trade Organization in managing the trade relationship and ensuring a fairer and free trade across the member countries. We also discussed about different trade, different responsibilities or organizations which are part of WTO, which will be taking care of different trade aspects in the international environment, and which includes trains, trams, and we also talks about AOA, the aggregate measurement principle that is being followed by WTO. We discussed about GATT, which got replaced by WTO in 1995. And we also said about Uruguay round, and we said that the Uruguay totally there were 15 rounds, and in that the popular one which we would be referring to is the 8th Uruguay round, which led to the establishment of WTO and other organizations, and also the treaty, the agreement, trade agreement that was established between 123 countries which participated in this conference. Okay, so these were the major economic institutions which are regulating the trade relationships and the free flow of goods, capital, or any other resources between the nations.